This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right. There he is. He's locked and loaded. We are going to have our Big O radio show at yahoo.com email ready. Don't send it on the text line. Send it over to Big O radio show at yahoo.com. We've got the email ready for you guys. You can also send it in on the text line if you got any fantasy football questions. Also, an easy way to send in a fantasy football question, it'll stand out like crazy, is on a super chat there on YouTube, or, of course, on Cash App or Venmo at Cash Big O Show. That's Cash Big O Show. That's the many ways that you can do it. Scott, how are you doing, my friend? You doing good?
Doing great, man. Looking forward to hopefully a high-scoring week in the fantasy finals. We're not going to have the weather problems we had last week, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, and let me ask you, since locally we've got all the bad news, obviously, with Tua, and his durability issues have been a major problem, obviously, all season and throughout his career, actually, unfortunately, and they continue to rear its ugly head. How do you look at Tyreek and Waddle going into a semifinal or Super Bowl with Teddy Bridgewater as your quarterback?
I mean, he threw for over 300 in the Minnesota game, which he didn't even start. I only think it's 80 or 85% of the offense is probably how I'd go. I'm still going to play the two receivers. I still think Miami has a good chance to win the game. This is not a great Patriots team. It's a better defense than it is offense. Good luck if you need any Patriot other than maybe Ramondre Stevenson. But I think Hill and Waddle should be fine.
Yeah, and they have injuries in the secondary. So that really sets it up for Hill and Waddle to be awesome. Is there a third fantasy option that's even a flex for you this week out of the Miami Dolphins?
Maybe Mostert, but you saw last week he had the fumble at the end of the first half, and they seemed a little bit reluctant to use him in the second half. There's also an interception on a pass intended for Mostert where maybe he and Tua weren't on the same page, although it's hard to take anything from Tua's second half performance because we know he was concussed, and it's just not fair to evaluate a guy like that. You could flex Mostert in a fantasy playoff game, but I hope you have better running back options.
Yeah, I would hope so too. That's why I asked, because it's hard in a moment like this to put Mostert in there, and you don't know what you're going to get, and then at times he goes away from the running game too, and that's also been an issue the last couple of weeks. When it has been working, he's kind of gone away from it. On the New England side, outside of Stevenson, there's nothing else to start, you said, right?
I mean, if you were super desperate, maybe Jacoby Myers. You're not playing Mac Jones. Both of the tight ends are dinged up, and they kind of cancel each other out anyway. So it's this is a very pedestrian Patriots team. And I've said this over and over again this year. The story of this fantasy season has been the quarterback play league-wide has been so sloppy. Mac Jones, who had a good rookie year, it wasn't like a change your life rookie year, but it was decent. He's taken a step back. He threw for a lot of yards in that Minnesota game, which everybody did. I mentioned how Bridgewater did it as well. Last week it was Daniel Jones who got that Minnesota secondary, but usually, Big O, there's like 3 to 5 offenses. It's like, yeah, I'll try to stay away from that offense. This year, I feel like there's like 10 or 11 or 12. The Raiders are benching Derek Carr. Russell Wilson's been a mess. Rodgers and Brady looking their age, and Stafford got hurt, and Lamar Jackson got hurt. Dak was hurt for a little bit. The Colts changed their quarterback every week. Look what the Titans ran out last week. It felt like an exhibition game, right? It's tough sledding out there, man. And there are some games I may have to play Antonio Gibson in a final. I don't feel good about it. DJ Moore is a receiver. I never know what to do with him, although he scored the last couple of weeks. We're talking about the Patriots. Stevenson's been good when healthy. Stevenson's a top 10 back. That's the only thing you can play there. With the Jets, we're like, oh, please save us, Mike White. Please save us from having to watch Zach Wilson play ever again.
Crazy season, dude. Sam Darnold kind of found his way at the end. Jared Goff became a good quarterback.
Baker Mayfield had a good game on Christmas. Where'd that come from, right? 51 points. God love you if Cam Akers got you into the fantasy finals. He's been great for about 3 weeks now. Or Tyler Higbee out of nowhere catches 9 passes for a couple of touchdowns.
And Geno Smith, this year. I mean, a bunch of stuff that happened this year that you would have never seen coming. So let me ask you something. Mm-hmm. What is your favorite game this week as a fantasy player that you look at that offense and you say, oh, this is a perfect offense going up against this defense? Look at all these fantasy options. Is there one matchup that really stands out?
I think the Lions are going to bounce back in a big way after
The
laying
Bears
an
are bad.
egg.
You're right.
Man, did they get trampled at Carolina? But now they're at home, they're indoors, and the Chicago defense can't stop anything. And on the other side, I mean, last time they played, Fields had a big game running. Komet had a couple of touchdowns. So I think those guys are in play. And the Lions probably have 3 or 4 guys you could start for fantasy. And Jared Goff, another guy, right?
Goff, Amon St. Brown.
Yeah. Nobody wanted any part of Goff before the season, but he's been a top 10 quarterback too.
Yeah. Can you imagine somebody's going to win their Super Bowl with Jared Goff? They would have. I bet that person didn't even have Jared Goff on their team.
Yeah, a guy who's saving my most important team is Trevor Lawrence, who's been great for the last 4 or 5 weeks. He's very quietly quarterback 5, and they've gotten Evan Ingram going. Another theme of this year is how ugly tight end has been. Other than Travis Kelce, Evan Ingram has a couple of big games. All of a sudden, he's a top 5 tight end, and Doug Peterson likes to prioritize that position. There's a team, and next year they get Calvin Ridley back. That could be a really fun offense. I still think they should throw the ball a little bit more to ETN, but they're getting the Texans at a good time. It sounds like the Jaguars are going to play to win. The game doesn't have a ton of value for them. They could still make it as a wild card with a win and a loss next week. They have like a 7% chance or something like that. But Peterson says they're going to play. Lawrence wants to play, so Texans, I know they've been scrappy, right? I mean, they got a win out of nowhere last week. They could have beaten Dallas. They could have beaten Kansas City, but it's still a team you want to see on the fantasy calendar when we get this late in the season.
Are you betting that Ridley will be back? I'm sorry. I just all right. So Jared Goff, obviously, in reality, you might have been scared with him. Fantasy is a good option. How about Brandon Cooks? Is he worthy of even a flex option this week? Because they are taking on the Jags. And the Jags are putting up some points now.
Yeah, I in a fallback spot, yes. I know we had the late touchdown last week, but that's an offense I just don't have faith that they're even going to get 300 yards. He's outside my top 30. You could play him. I would not do it proactively.
Okay, let me see here. Travis Etienne. Somebody's asking if they should start him on the opposite side of the field that we just asked.
It comes down to options, but he's probably a top 12, top 13 running back for me against the Houston defense. I know they hung in pretty well last week against Henry other than the long touchdown, but really what could they do? I mean, Malik Willis was overmatched in his starts. They went away from him last night, I should say. But I would think ETN's in good shape for 80-plus yards and maybe a 50% chance at a touchdown. I wish they'd throw the ball to him a little bit more. He doesn't have more than 3 targets, I don't think, in any game this season, but this is a good offense, and I think the Jags probably put up 400 yards of offense in this game. This probably 4 guys I would start with confidence, ETN being one of them.
All right, Sage is asking, hi, Scott. I need a serviceable flex for my fantasy Super Bowl. I need 20 points to win. Should I play Slayton, Cooks, Patterson, and Shaheed? I also have Waddle, Amon St. Brown, Algier, and Mike Williams.
Well, those 4 guys you're definitely going to play. The last starter I would give to Slayton. I realize, look, nobody's scoring a ton of touchdowns in this passing game, but he's getting 6 to 8 targets a week. Yeah, I think he had 74 yards in the Vikings game. He's still their best receiver. James has done a little bit lately. Hodgins has done a little bit lately, but I think Slayton is in the circle of trust. The rest of your roster sounded very strong, so I think there's a good chance you'll get those points you need.
All right, got 7 players here, need at least 2 running backs. Which would you go with in a standard scoring league, not PPR? McKinnon, Dobbins, Foreman, Jamal Williams, Mike Williams, Wilson for the Jets, and Adams for the Raiders.
Man, I can't play Adams. I know Devontae Adams is Devontae Adams, but Jarrett Stidham isn't a guy I have any confidence in. Donta Foreman has to start. And I think with the Bears on the other side, Jamal Williams, I feel pretty good about. We know when they go to the goal line, it's not Swift. They go to Williams. So I think he's an excellent chance to score this week. And the Lions will bounce back. They have a top 10 offensive line. They just hit Carolina at the wrong week. I feel really good about the Lions. So I know it sounds weird. You drafted Devontae Adams. You never thought you would bench him in the fantasy finals, but Jarrett Stidham is going to drive this. They got the 40. It's bad enough that Stidham is playing. They're up against the 49ers, who are probably the best defense in football. I could see them scoring 7 or fewer points.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. This is going to be one hell. And plus, what are the Niners going to do? They're going to take his ass out of this game. Is what they're going
Which
to
other
do.
teams have done, right? I mean, the
Right.
Steelers did it. The Patriots did it. Adams, as it is, wasn't doing anything with Carr. He's a reason why Carr got benched.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you there. They're asking about you. You mentioned it earlier. Should they start Cam Akers as a flex against the Chargers?
Oh, for sure. The Chargers average, I think it's 5.3 yards a carry they give up. And Akers is a top 10 running back the last month. He's got all the touchdown equity, and he's got 10 plus touches in his back pocket, could be up to 15 or 20. And let's be fair, Mayfield's been okay, right? I mean, he played mostly. It was late in that first start against the Raiders. He'd been with the team 48 minutes, and they kicked the living snot out of the Broncos. I think the Broncos defense, it's been good most of the year. I think it's like a roof of a house that eventually you get so much snow on the roof of the house that the roof collapses. That's what happened to the Broncos defense last week, and obviously they fired their coach. They're stuck with Russell Wilson, but I think Akers will have a decent game. And the Chargers are a good team, but they give up the run, and Akers is going to get, I think, probably 15 to 18 touches here. I feel good about him.
Razzle Dazzle Crypto wants to know Lawrence or Goff.
I'd be fine with either one. If you had any hesitation that the Jaguars won't play to win, I think they will. That might slide you to Goff. It's also the indoor game. The Bears defense is awful. Obviously, the Texans defense is nothing to write home about.
Lawrence has the running yards too a little bit.
He does. I think Goff
not a ton. He doesn't really look to run all the damn time. But.
Goff, he did have a rushing touchdown against the Jets, which kind of saved his bacon. He didn't do a ton in the rain, but Goff's probably a little bit safer. Lawrence probably a little bit more upside. Right now, I have Lawrence like 2 slots higher. You could play either one of them. I'll give you a slight preference to Lawrence, but if you get any indication that you think the Jaguars might pull back in this game, you could go to Goff. Lawrence is a little bit higher on my sheet, but they're both good plays.
Okay. Someone's asking about Brian Robinson. Should they start them against the Browns?
Well, you know what you're getting with him. First and second down pounding. He'll get probably 15 carries. They ran him into that brick wall of the 49ers. Nobody runs for more than 60 yards against them. So you hope he gets a touchdown because he's not going to get involvement in the passing game. I think the move to Wentz is a step back for the offense. I don't know why they're doing. Not that Heineke was anything great, but I like the offense less with Wentz. You could play Robinson. He's not by any means an automatic play. I think he's probably going to have 15 carries, around 70 to 75 yards. Let's say 30% chance at a touchdown.
All right. Zonovan Knight. John wants to know in Davie.
Seattle's defense is falling apart. The Jets' offense has a better chance with Mike White. And again, a lot of what I probably just said for Robinson applies for Knight. Probably 15 carries. He'll probably be 70, 80 yards. And about that 25 or 30% chance at a touchdown. In fact, if you had White and Robinson on the same team, I'd have a hard time deciding who to play. I think I'd slightly come down on the Robinson side with a home game. You could play Knight this week. He's not by any means a pound-the-table start, but he's probably around running back 25 or so for me.
All right. Nyborg wants to know, got to start 2 running backs. Kamara, Algier, Dobbins, Foreman, or Pacheco?
Algier and Foreman stand out for me. Algier has taken over this backfield on a Falcons team. They're favored this week. I know they can't go anywhere in the playoffs, but he's their main back. They want to run the ball. And we saw what Foreman did last week. He will share with some other guys. Hubbard's a decent player too, but Foreman, again, 15, 20 touches on a team where their identity is running the ball. And they've already beaten the Buccaneers. They beat them 21-3 in a game that was really lopsided. Wasn't as close as the score indicated. That famous Mike Evans drop early in the game, and the Buccaneers did nothing right. By the way, Mike Evans, no touchdown since week 4. Merry Christmas if you have Mike Evans. You're probably in your fantasy consolation bracket. But I feel really good about Foreman this week. And Algier, again, it hasn't been a greatest year for rookie running backs. Walker, I think, is the only guy in the top 20, but Algier may be there by the end of the season. I think he has a big game on Sunday.
All right. Paul and Del Rey is asking a flex Christian Kirk or Christian Watson. It's a half PPR.
As long as Watson clears out on Friday's practice, I got to go there because he's just got more touchdown equity. And he's a guy that it's really hard to get in the Rodgers circle of trust, but he's made it. You saw him on Christmas make a couple of plays and get a little bit dinged up. As long as Watson practices Friday, I'll use him on Sunday.
Yeah, his family can't even get in his circle of trust. I mean,
yeah, right. Christmas
anyway, follow him on Twitter at Scott_Pianowski. And what are you guys working on over at Yahoo this weekend so you can help some folks win a Super Bowl?
Sure. Yeah, we rolled out the sleepers yesterday, rolled out the bold predictions. We did our fantasy football live show on Thursday night just because of the unusual lay of the calendar this week. I'm doing my NFL picks today. And on Sunday, if you need last-minute help, get me at Yahoo Fantasy. The last hour before kickoff, I'll be taking Q&A if you need anything that needs sorting out. And, of course, you can always follow me on Twitter at Scott_Pianowski. Let me know you're from this show, and I'll do everything I can to help you. Congratulations. You got this far. You did the reps. That's why you lift all them weights, as Bill Parcells would say. So let's get that championship for you.
That's right. And maybe we'll talk about consolation next week. And then we start to get ready for the off season and talking about the keepers and the dynasty leagues and the drafts and everything else in the off season. Scotty, as always, I appreciate you. Happy New Year, my friend. We will catch up next week.
Great to talk to you. Happy New Year, buddy.
Thank you. There you go, Scott Pianowski, 8 great locations, sports grill right here in South Florida, baby. And the newest location in Doral is open. Go to sportsgrill.com and check out the nearest location near you.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.